Hair retention is a lifelong endeavor. If you want to keep the hair that you have, you're signing up for a lifelong thing. Hi, everybody. I am Adam Hurly. I am a grooming journalist for a little over a decade for outlets like GQ, Men's Journal, Forbes Vetted, Rob Report, you name it, I've probably written for them. Blueprint is where I put all of that expertise and experience in one place for you. And today's topic is one of my absolute favorites. It is hair loss 101. Hair retention, hair regrowth. We're going to get into all of that today. A few disclaimers up top, though. First and foremost, I am not a doctor. Everybody should see their doctor to figure out a tailored hair retention plan for themselves. Secondly, remember that as a grooming journalist, it is my job to receive and test pretty much every product under the sun. So you should assume that in this video and any other video that I produce, I have not paid for the products here. Here's what we're going to go over in this video. We are going to set some accurate expectations based on your stage of hair loss. We're going to talk about the two medicines that are the absolute most effective for treating and preventing hair loss. And then we'll close things out talking about plasma injections, laser treatments. Lastly, we will talk about hair transplants, but do not get a hair transplant if you are not doing the measures at the top of this video. All right, first of all, expectations. Let's set some records straight. If you have only been experiencing or noticing hair loss in the last year or two, you're kind of in that sweet spot where you can bring a lot of that hair back by taking proper measures to restore it. There are two key types of hair loss. One, of course, is hairline recession. The other is general crown thinning. The general crown thinning is much easier to revive than recession. Typically, if your hair has recessed, you're not going to bring that hairline forward. Only a hair transplant can do that for you. But if you've experienced general crown thinning, you are a prime candidate for bringing a lot of that back, keeping things thick, and locking your hairline in where it is. Don't necessarily wait until you start noticing hair loss, and don't assume that you'll never experience it just because maybe your father or grandfather or brothers haven't experienced it. It really is a good time to start if you are in your early or mid-20s. You could significantly, for the next many decades, slow and stifle any hair loss that you would otherwise naturally experience. If you start any hair retention measures, any hair regrowth measures, and you're looking for results, you should expect those somewhere around 6 to 12 months. You might see some results as early as 3 or 4 months. The thing is it takes a little bit of time to activate any dormant follicles, to reawaken them, to make them strong enough to express enough hairs for you to see those denser results. So I always say give it at least 6 months before you start saying, yes, this is working, or no, this is not. And then furthermore, just wait a few more months, like up to a year, before you really say, I'm going to go all in on this, or I'm going to give up now. The same goes for if you are considering a hair transplant. You should absolutely not consider a hair transplant if you have not been doing proper hair loss medicines for about a year, if not more. You need to be expressing as much hair as is possible on your head before you intervene with a hair transplant. Furthermore, after a hair transplant, and I'll talk about this more at the end of the video, but after a hair transplant, you still have to be doing these medicines. You are effectively signing up one way or the other for a lifetime of hair retention measures. So just FYI. Now, let's get into the absolute best treatments for hair loss. They are minoxidil and finasteride. Minoxidil being the generic of Rogaine, finasteride being the generic of Propecia. These are the absolute best clinically proven ways to intervene with hair loss, to regrow your hair, all of that. And best of all, the generics have been available for a while, so it is relatively affordable now to keep your hair by using one or two of these medicines. Now, they work in very different ways. They target different things. They have different side effects. So we are going to get into those things. You might come to the conclusion that you want to try one, not the other, or maybe both. They also both come with oral and topical versions. So with that, you might say, I want the oral of this one, the topical of that. Let's help you decide. First and foremost, minoxidil. In my opinion, this is the real gold standard in hair retention medicines. That's because minoxidil is the best tolerated. Minoxidil is a vasodilator. So it's going to open up your blood vessels. It's going to improve nutrient delivery to your hair follicles when applied topically. When you take it orally, it works around your entire body in a similar way. This is actually a blood pressure medicine. It is the generic for Lonitin, and then they just microdose it for the cosmetic benefits. So with minoxidil, you are effectively just fortifying all of those follicles to express themselves thicker, fuller, get as much oxygen, nutrients as possible. One thing minoxidil also does is it sort of regulates your hair growth cycles. You could also say it optimizes these cycles. It basically lengthens the amount of time that your hair spends growing, and it shortens the amount of time that it spends resting before shedding and starting all over. So I like to say that you have more hairs on your head at any given time versus in a normal situation where you've got a lot that have been shed and are waiting to regrow as part of their natural cycle. So with minoxidil, you are expressing more hairs at any given moment. Thus, your hair also always looks thicker. Now, one thing to know about this whole hair cycle is that with minoxidil, in those first few months of taking it will send a lot of hairs into that shedding phase quickly. It's basically regulating your hair growth cycles. So you will notice more hair loss in those first couple months. I promise that you will be the only person who notices this because you'll see it in your sink or your shower or whatnot. However, that is a sign that it's working. So just stick it out, okay? Just let those hairs regrow, stick it out to month 6, 7, 8, 12, whatever. You will absolutely see results. So don't worry about the extra shedding right away. Again, minoxidil is really low dose, especially when applied topically. There's next to no risks. That's why it's also available over the counter topically. Orally, if you are taking it, it's much more important to consider if you have any heart issues, blood pressure issues. These are the things you want to talk with your doctor, but orally, it is only available via prescription. Now, the other thing to know orally with minoxidil is that it will help you grow hair all over your body. This might be a good thing for some people. I also always say that minoxidil might be one of your best bets of actually growing in your beard hair any thicker. Don't have high expectations there, but if you do, you can apply the serum to your cheeks or you can take the pill. That is probably your best bet of like hastening along any growth that you were otherwise capable of having. It's not going to like just magically make hairs grow where they were never going to in the first place. But if there is one thing that might actually be good for filling in some patchiness, it probably is minoxidil. I've got the different examples of minoxidil here. Right now, I'm taking a topical one. It is this one from Hims. I am pairing that with topical finasteride, which I'll get into soon. My partner, Andre, though, he is taking from Roe these oral supplements. He takes 2.5 milligrams a day from them. He does not do finasteride, whereas I do both. So it's much more important, I think, for him to be taking the oral one because oral minoxidil is going to work much more effectively than topical. I mean, both are great, but when you do take it and consume it from within, you will have the best results possible. If you've made it this far, I hope you will like this video, subscribe, you know the drill, share it with a friend. Maybe not so passive aggressively because hair loss is a sensitive subject. I also want you to know about the Blueprint by Adam Hurly newsletter that we send out every week. You can subscribe at the link below or go to grooming.tips. You'll find the link there. That's where I'm talking about all the grooming topics under the sun about the best new brands and products, expert advice, of course, some occasional discounts and big ticket giveaways. So sign up for that newsletter. I would really, really appreciate it. Now, Finasteride. This one comes with a little bit of a warning, and I want to put that warning up top, especially for oral finasteride. When you take finasteride orally, you are taking a cosmetic dose of a medicine that treats enlarged prostates. And so what they found is that the patients who were taking this prostate medicine were also experiencing hair regrowth and fullness. And so then they just made a cosmetic dosage, and that's what gave us Propecia for hair loss. The rumors are true. There are a number of people who experience some sexual side effects when taking finasteride, especially oral finasteride. Generally, reports will say that it's somewhere between 2 and 4% of people who either experience a low libido, difficulty getting or maintaining. However, some studies that are pretty reliable claim that up to 19% of people taking oral finasteride can experience these kinds of side effects. Within a couple days, it will clear your system. However, there is a small percentage of people who will have these symptoms persist. So for obvious reasons, I'm growing more and more skeptical of this drug, the oral version of it, as time goes on, especially because the topical alternative is equally effective with basically none of the side effects. So knowing that the topical is available and that both are only prescription based, I kind of just think most guys should go with a topical option. There's a great study from the European Academy of Dermatology and Venerology that says that basically topical finasteride is equally effective as oral with basically none of those side effects. So in that way, it's kind of the inverse of minoxidil because we say that guys should take oral minoxidil if they want the best possible option. But with finasteride, I think just especially because of the risks, the topical is the best version. Now, what does finasteride actually do? Finasteride inhibits the conversion of testosterone into this byproduct called dihydrotestosterone, which is called DHT for short. What DHT does is it gathers at the base of your follicles and it slowly miniaturizes them and shrivels them up. So by inhibiting the conversion of testosterone into DHT, you are preventing the shrinkage of those follicles because the DHT never gathers. And then by applying finasteride topically, you're sort of just interfering with it locally at the site. It's not fully integrated into your bloodstream. It's something like 1/100th of the integration into your system as taking it orally. So it's really not inhibiting your libido or anything like that. Whereas minoxidil works just to fortify and strengthen and improve the general fullness of the hair around your crown, finasteride is exceptional at targeting and slowing recession. If you are someone prone to recession, maybe you've seen some at your temples, or maybe you are actively losing your hairline more and more every month, finasteride is a must. Again, take the topical version, just play it safe. But remember, the difference between the two types of hair loss is that you can't bring your hairline forward. So even if you take finasteride, you're effectively just locking in that hairline where it is. And with minoxidil, you're just focusing on the general thickness of each strand of the hair's health around the head. So even though a lot of guys who take minoxidil can also generally slow all sorts of thinning, including some recession, I do like to divide the different measures into those things to say, maybe everyone should be taking minoxidil, but specifically the guys experiencing hair recession should be taking finasteride too. But in a perfect world, you're taking both. Related to finasteride is something called Dutasteride. I'm actually taking the topical version of this right now. I kind of lump them together because they are targeting DHT, both of them. However, Dutasteride targets two enzymes that convert testosterone into DHT, whereas finasteride only targets one. I would really suggest not taking oral dutasteride because it stays in your body a hell of a lot longer than oral minoxidil. Topically, you're kind of fine with both situations. So I'm actually taking a topical from Zion right now. It's a gel and I apply it at night and it slowly dissolves into my scalp. It's almost like a time release overnight while I sleep. So I've got both the topical minoxidil and the topical dutasteride gel happening at once when I go to bed. I would say don't overthink choosing finasteride or dutasteride in terms of topical options. They're both fantastic. Given everything we've talked about with these two drugs, I also want to point out that you can buy a compound product. Maybe you want to simplify your regimen, you want to get both ingredients into your system with one application. You can get a compound or a hybrid product like this one from Ro. It is a combination of topical finasteride and minoxidil. Specifically, in this case, it is a 6% minoxidil and a 0.3% finasteride. But on top of that, it also has tretinoin. This is a prescription grade version of retinoids, a vitamin A derivative that we commonly use in anti-aging and anti-acne treatments. So when you apply that to your scalp, and pair it with minoxidil, it just maximizes the growth of those follicles. A lot of brands out there do sell compound products like this, including Hims and Zion. They tend to be 1-a-day applications unless otherwise noted, but you remember that in this Ro prescription, it said it was a 6% minoxidil. So they've stepped that up because it's a once-a-day application versus the typical 5% that you apply twice. They also might have compound oral options. I tend to stay away from those just because of the oral finasteride. I'll put links below for a lot of these brands and some of the compounds and the individual products they offer. Let's talk about the sponsor of this video. You might recognize Dr. Gary Linkov from around YouTube. He is a doctor that I work with a lot at GQ and Rob Report and Men's Journal. Dr. Gary is a New York City based plastic surgeon and he has a brand called Feel Confident. The thing that I associate Feel Confident with is affordable access to these hair loss medicines that I have already talked about. Oral minoxidil, topical finasteride, oral finasteride if you want it. You can go there for those, as well as a trio of hair thickening products that will give you fuller expression on a daily basis. They also have a great quartet of skincare products, including 3 universal products that target pretty much every skin type, and a great scar gel. You can use this code at feelconfident.com or use the link below. You'll get 10% off your first sale. This 10% will not work on any prescription medicines. Now let's move on to LLLT and PRP. I group these two things together because they're both relatively expensive treatments or therapies that you can use to target hair loss. And I think they should only be considered if you have a lot of money to throw at the problem or you are just resorting to all your possible options. LLLT stands for low level laser therapy. It can also stand for low level light therapy. This involves red lasers or near infrared lasers that send specific wavelengths into your scalp to stimulate your hair follicles. Laser therapy has similar benefits as minoxidil in terms of regulating your hair growth cycles and stimulating circulation in the area. It's also shown to reduce DHT at the site, so it can target the same thing as finasteride. Laser treatment also reduces inflammation around the scalp, which only further strengthens your hair follicles and, of course, soothes your scalp. In clinic, you can get some really great LLLT treatments. This is going to be your most effective way of doing so. These treatments can cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in the clinic, and they're effective, yes. Maybe it's really good to use them like after a hair transplant or something. However, you can get at-home devices that bring that technology home and have really great results in just a few minutes a day. And that's a really easy way to incorporate it into your routine. These devices have upwards of 300 diodes. You can get lasers or LEDs. I always say to err on the side of lasers if you really want to go all in on this because they're going to be a little more effective. Here is one that we use in this house. Now, this costs over $5,000. It is from Dr. Bauman at Bauman Medical in Florida. Again, I get everything for my job for free, so I didn't pay for this. But considering, you could go get a few treatments in clinic and suddenly you're probably facing a similar bill, you can also bring this home. This one has 300 diodes. Capitalist has also some really, really great options for like half of that price and as many diodes. So there are these things that you could consider investing in if you are somebody who has that sort of follow through to use it every day. Again, I would not replace finasteride and or minoxidil with laser therapy. So you could use it as a supplement to those things. All right, so PRP, this stands for platelet-rich plasma. And this basically is where you inject your own plasma into your dome. As you can imagine, this is expensive and kind of annoying, but it is extremely effective at the same time, especially with the latest advancements. Your blood contains plasma, and your plasma contain platelets, and your platelets contain growth patterns that are specific to your DNA. Because these growth factors are specific to you, once they're put back into your body, the chances of them being beneficial and efficacious to you is like virtually perfect. This is a technology that's also used in injury healing, in a lot of sports medicine, for joints, for anything. I did this recently in New York with Dr. Ben Paul. Hi, Dr. Paul, you're the best. So they take your blood out of your arm, they put it in a centrifuge, they take that plasma that's been separated, they inject it up top, and it acts like a little steroid for all your cells as they regenerate over the next few months. And basically, you get thicker, fuller hair all around. Now, does it work? Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it painful? You might just sit there like this for like 10 or 15 seconds as it's happening. And that's an experience like, oh my God, you will never forget the sound of that crunching sound of the needle going into your head at the end. They can do some localized numbing, some injections around the scalp. But if you do that localized numbing ahead of time, then basically you're not going to experience any pain after those a few initial pricks at the beginning of the process. PRP has a few rules about what you need to avoid leading up to the procedure. You want to avoid anti-inflammatory steroids like ibuprofen. You want to not be drinking. You want to get a good night's rest, all of that. As much as I love PRP, I've gotten it a handful of times for work. I would get it as many times as I could. However, it is so expensive. It can be like 1,000 or much more depending on the zip code you live in. It is something that, in theory, if you're going to do it, you should be doing it every 3 to 6 months, probably more on the 3 month side of things. So that starts to add up really quickly as well, especially given how many other options you have available to you in terms of hair retention. I would just rank PRP as a nice bonus you can add on if you can afford it. Now, that said, there is a new advancement in PRP and it's becoming more and more available fast. It is called PRF. They sort of classify it as a version of PRP, so I don't know if long term we're going to just keep calling it all PRP, but it's going to migrate over to this new technology. PRF stands for platelet-rich fibrin. Now you draw much less blood with PRF. This is the one I did with Dr. Paul in New York City recently. I think we only took 2 vials of blood with PRF, and I remember with PRP taking like 7 or 8 vials of blood. With PRF, what they're doing is once they separate the plasma out, they then mix it into this gel-like substance. So with PRP, they're still mixing it, but the PRF becomes a gel, and then they inject that gel into your scalp, and it slow releases over time. So with PRP, it's sort of like wearing off relatively quickly after it's injected. So you still get the benefit of those growth factors being in your scalp and in your follicles. But with PRF, you're getting this like slow release, long benefit, and you only need to get it every 6 months or so. So you are drawing less blood, you're getting better benefits, and you're doing it half as often. PRF is definitely worth looking into. Its price is going to change a lot in the near future, I think, because it's going to become more readily available. That said, if you want it now, it might still be worth it because it is a little more effective and you don't have to do it as much. So ask your doctor if they are offering PRF in place of PRP. It's all just good stuff to know about. With all of that said, I still place PRP at the bottom of the pyramid with LLLT. They are just so expensive that they are really cost prohibitive for most people. I do think that if you're using minoxidil and or finasteride, you are good to go. Last but not least, hair transplants. This is a hair transplant for what it's worth. I got a hair transplant, little horseshoe, and I filled in some bald spots of vitiligo that I had. But like me, you should not get a hair transplant unless you have been taking these medicines, ideally 12 or more months, because you want the maximum expression of hairs and you want to know that you can stick to the habit. Because once you get a hair transplant, you're going to get it most likely from the sides and the back. And this hair is not predisposed to falling the same way that this hair is. It's just genetics wise, it's a little different. Now you can imagine if you stop doing minoxidil, finasteride, whatever, and you just get lazy after the hair transplant, you think, I got a transplant, I'm fine, I'm locked in. No, all this hair can still fall and everything that's been transplanted can stay. So imagine if I stopped doing all these medicines, kept experiencing hair loss. Suddenly I would have this horseshoe Franciscan monk type thing, friar tuck. So you have to keep taking the hair loss medicines that you are taking before a hair transplant after a hair transplant for the rest of time. Whether you get a hair transplant or not, if you want to keep your hair and have the maximum expression possible, you need to keep taking these things because as soon as you get your hair back, maybe from taking minoxidil or finasteride, and you say, I've got it, it's great, and you stop, you're going to lose it again. The same thing goes with if you've got a hair transplant. When you lose all that other hair, you're stuck with the hair that you transplanted. It does not go anywhere. Okay, that is all I've got on hair loss 101. There's plenty more to come. Sign up for the newsletter. I'm probably talking about hair loss all the time in that newsletter. It's something I love to talk about. Please comment below. I love to create conversations in the comments. I consider it research, crowdsourcing. I want to know which of these you've considered. If you've had any issues, share your stories if you're willing to. Talk about the things that have worked for you. I'm fine with you pushing back on some of the things that I've said in this video, just be nice. I consider all of that beneficial to my research as a journalist. So comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for sticking around. And you know what? When you think of all this stuff and all that goes into keeping your hair, maybe it just makes more sense to shave it all off. Bald is great too. Bye guys, take care.